All right, we're going to fix the audio on that, but Secretary of Homeland Security, or Department of Homeland Security, Secretary Kristi Noem delivering remarks. We're going to get back to that feed and work out the audio on that. But what we can tell you is this happened in New York. It happened over the weekend. Saturday. It was the shooting of an off-duty U.S. Customs and Border Protection officer during what appears to have been an attempted robbery. NYPD is investigating this incident. But let's go ahead and go back to that feed out of New York right now on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
And because of that, one of the perpetuators was wounded in this interaction and was incarcerated when he came in to get medical treatment. One of the suspected attackers, the one that was injured, his name is Miguel Francisco Mora Nunez, a Dominican national that was entering into this country illegally back in 2023. He was then released back into this country by the Biden administration. Miguel Francisco Mora Nunez and has a rap sheet that is a mile long. He was arrested. He was charged with grand larceny and also assault. The state of Massachusetts has an active warrant out for him for armed robbery with a firearm. He also has many other charges against him, such as kidnapping and witness intimidation. There's absolutely zero reason that someone who is scum of the earth like this should be running loose on the streets of New York City. He was arrested 4 different times in New York City, and because of the mayor's policies and was released back to do harm to people and to individuals living in this city. Make no mistake, this officer is in the hospital today fighting for his life because of the policies of the mayor of this city and the city council and the people that were in charge of keeping the public safe. They refused to do so, and now we have the situation on our hand where someone who has dedicated their lives to protecting the public is now fighting in Sanctuary City and to policies and to change their tactics right now. Their job is to take an oath to protect the public, to out there every single day, provide for each other and to try to live the American dream, and they want to do so safely in their own communities. How many more lives will it take? How many more people have to be hurt and victimized before we have public safety be a #1 priority in some of our largest cities? When I look at what Mayor Adams did, to see the families that have suffered because of his policies. We can look across this country at other mayors. We look at Mayor Wu in Boston and what has happened there under her watch. What's happened in LA with the riots and the violence and the protests that have gone on because of Mayor Bass and what she has perpetuated. When you look at Mayor Johnson in Chicago and how devastating it is to live in that city and some of those poorest communities, how they suffer every single day with the violence that's in front of them, just because these individuals are protecting criminals. They're protecting criminals who go out and murder, rape, rob. They perpetuate violence on our children. They traffic them and drugs and damage this country every single day under the protection of Sanctuary City and governors who put in place these policies that allow them to perpetuate these crimes with no consequences. What I would say is today, my hope is that this would wake up these individuals and they would recognize that they can't keep letting these dangerous criminals go free. They can't continue to let these individuals be brought in for crimes they're committing against the public and then releasing them right back onto the streets with no consequences whatsoever. Fortunately for us today, our officer survived. He survived. He's going through a very difficult time, and I would ask that you respect him and his family and his friend who was with him and what they have gone through. But I would also say that we can't guarantee that the next victim of these dangerous criminals will be treated the same or will be able to get through this dangerous situation. We were able to bring the second individual in and have detained him as well, and he will face consequences and hopefully strong prosecution in his involvement on Saturday night. But my hope is that we can continue to, when ICE is out in our communities and they're lodging detainers against individuals, that we would have a city like New York City start to honor them and allow us to bring these criminals to justice, allow them to get them out of our communities so that they can't continue to hurt people like we saw on Saturday night. We still have a lot of work to do. We've seen violence against our officers go up over 830% just in recent days because of the rhetoric out of politicians and the rhetoric out of individuals who are letting this victim against the public. So I would call on everybody today to happen, how in one moment someone's life can change, their whole family can change, and it is happening every day across this country. And this officer and his family, while today they are suffering, they still continue to serve the public and recognize that they want to go back out and make sure that they're doing all that they can to uphold the rule of law in this country. We're doing everything in our power to make sure that our officers out on the streets have the equipment and the training and the resources and the backup that they need to do their jobs, but they should never have to deal with an individual who was arrested 4 different times for violating the law and then released. And that individual was released on the streets of the city because of Mayor Bass's policies and because of his city council's policies and because of politicians who talk big and then people get hurt. People get hurt, and in many cases they end up losing their lives. Let's hope that that's never true and that today is the day that those policies change and people get the courage to make sure they're making the decisions that actually do protect people going forward. We're going to bring the perpetuators of violence to justice. President Trump has promised that for the American people, and he's going to follow through on it. I'll do all that I can, and I'm so grateful to have partners like Rodney Scott with me from Border Patrol and Protection, and also with Tom Homan as the Border Czar. We'll continue to work to make sure that we're dealing with the violence that we see on our streets, but we also recognize that here in these sanctuary cities, it's much more dangerous because of the politicians who aren't taking responsibility for what they're doing. They're setting the American to become victims of crime, and it has to stop today. I'd ask you all to keep our law enforcement officers in your prayers, their families, as they face the environment that they do every day while they do their job. This officer wasn't even on the job. He was out enjoying a beautiful evening with a friend of his and was a victim of crime, and it ended up with him mortally and seriously wounded, and he is going to, because of the great care of the doctors that are taking care of him today, pull through. But our prayers are going to be with him and his family as they work their way through this situation. With that, I will turn it over to Rodney Scott, who is the Commissioner of our Customs and Border Protection.
Thank you for being here. Thank you, Madam Secretary, for all the support that you've given us and the support you're showing our officers today and the comments that you just made. My name is Rodney Scott. I'm currently the Commissioner of United States Customs and Border Protection. But as I talk, I want you to remember that I was also the Chief of the United States Border Patrol until 2021. I want to really start by thanking the medical personnel here in New York City at the hospital, the EMS workers, and even the guys behind me in blue that have shown tremendous support to our officer and to his family as well. We should not be here today. The reason these 2 assailants are inside the United States today is because of failed border policies by the Biden administration. I personally warned the Biden administration against their open border policies in 2021. I was ignored, and exactly what I predicted, many of us predicted, happened. Total chaos along the border. These 2 individuals, the 2 assailants, were released into the United States after being apprehended because of failed policies. President Trump stepped up and fixed those failed policies on January 20th of this year. With the support from Secretary Noem, we now have the most secure border that I've ever seen in my entire lifetime. Much of that resolution was by fixing failed policies based on facts and evidence. Sanctuary city policies across this nation, and some of these, and even states in some cases, are failed policies. The facts and evidence are there in front of you. It's time for local leadership and state leadership to step up to the plate like President Trump did, acknowledge crime as crime, acknowledge the fact that there's no global information system where we can vet these people coming into the United States. We do not know who they are, and we have to have border security where we simply know and control who and what enters our country, just like we do our homes. This should not be political. I'm calling on all state and local leaders to step up to the plate, get rid of these sanctuary city laws, and simply enforce the laws on the books. Work with your federal agencies so that we can actually root out these criminals from our neighborhoods. Last but not least, I should have said this up front, thoughts and prayers for our officer and his family, and I would ask that you keep them in your thoughts and prayers as well. Thank you for your time, but please remember this. This was 100% preventable. It was caused by bad policy, and it can be fixed with good policy. Thank you.
I visited the officer last night. Of course, he was heavily sedated, so I didn't have words with him, but I did talk to his family. They're devastated. It's just a shock to the soul when you walk in and see that young man laying there. Secretary said it, Rodney said it, sanctuary cities are sanctuaries for criminals. Hard stop. I've been doing this since 1984. I've never seen a situation where I see it today. New York City, how many times do you want to see NYPD attacked by illegal alien criminals in the city? Now a federal officer. How many citizens in this city have been attacked by illegal aliens in this city? You see the polls. Everybody agrees we should be arresting public safety threat illegal aliens, but you got a city council here that locked this out of Rikers Island. Are you kidding me? So an illegal alien in Rikers Island we can't talk to, we don't have access to. That makes the city unsafe. Every sanctuary city is unsafe. I'll say it again, sanctuary cities are sanctuaries for criminals. And I'm going to work very hard for Secretary Noem to keep President Trump's promise and his commitment several weeks ago that sanctuary cities are now our priority. We're going to flood the zone. You don't want to let us into jail to arrest a bad guy in the safety and security of a jail. You want to release him into the street, which makes it unsafe for the community, makes it unsafe for the officer, makes it unsafe for the alien. Anything can happen on the street arrest. So what we're going to do, we'll have more agents in New York City to look for that bad guy. So sanctuary cities get exactly what they don't want, more agents in the community and more agents in the work site. If we can't arrest a bad guy in the safety and security of the county jail, then we'll arrest him in the community, and we'll arrest him in the jail. And when we arrest him in the community, if he's with others that are in the country illegally, they're coming too. Sanctuary cities are sanctuaries for criminals. President Trump is not going to tolerate it. And I'll work every day with Secretary Noem to make sure we get as many bad guys, illegal aliens out of this country that we can. And I want to say one more thing. I'm sick and tired of reading in the media every day how ICE is not doing what the Trump administration has promised. That we're not arresting criminals. That most of the people we arrest are not criminals. I look at the numbers every day. The numbers I looked at the other day, 130,000 arrests and 90,000 criminals. Do the math, that's 70%. And who are the others? Others are those who have final orders, who had due process at great taxpayer expense. A federal judge ordered them removed, so ICE's job is to remove them. Who are the rest of the people? National security threats. Under Secretary Noem's leadership, they've arrested several hundred Iranian nationals. National security threat. They may not have a criminal conviction, but they need to be detained. They need to be arrested and taken off the streets of this country. Then I read another story about how most people in ICE detention aren't criminals. Now the story is, how bad of a criminal they have to be. I saw a story the other day. Only 1% of the illegal aliens removed were murderers. Are you kidding me? Being in the country illegally is not illegal anymore? You got to commit a murder to be deported? If you look at ICE detention, I'll say it again. Look at detention. Who's in detention? I looked at the numbers this morning. A majority are criminals, a criminal history. Who are the rest? Final order cases, who a judge ordered removed. The others are expedited removal. By federal statute, demands they be detained. So for the media out there, let's try telling the truth about the men and women of ICE and the men and women of the Border Patrol. I wore that uniform. I was an ICE agent. These are the finest men and women in this country that put their lives on the line every day for this country. I buried Border Patrol agents. I buried ICE agents. Luckily, thank God, we're not burying one today. Enough. I love the men and women of ICE. I love the men and women of the Border Patrol. They're finally doing the job they took an oath to do, and they got a great leadership of Secretary Noem, who's going to enforce the law without apology. I appreciate your leadership. That's all.
Good morning. Diane Sabatino, Acting Executive Assistant Commissioner, Office of Field Operations. First, I certainly want to express my heartfelt thanks to Secretary Noem, Commissioner Scott, and Border Czar Homan for the incredible support they have demonstrated for the New York Field Office of Field Operations the last couple of days. You know, it is a tragic scenario to get a phone call about an officer, any CBP, Customs and Border Protection employee, that's injured in the line of duty. it was even more tragic, this individual off duty. They picked the wrong guy in this particular case, 2 assailants, just a crime of opportunity. Unfortunately, and I apologize, I'm a bit overwhelmed. I saw the officer this morning, and having met him before and seeing how challenged our officers are in taking care of each other during this hard time. But just to get back to what I was saying, they picked the wrong individual to try to rob. And thank God, when we invest in our CBP officers, we invest in training, we invest in vigilance 24/7. Our officers and our agents stand watch 24/7 on the front line of the United States of America, and we'll take action and we'll demonstrate that vigilance and dedication at any opportunity.